So Ravens flock, Malaki Starks has been setting Ravens Nation on fire for the past few weeks. He first started setting the Ravens Nation on fire when he got drafted in the first place because many Ravens fans were just simply excited that he was on the team. He was a very talented guy, a guy who many people in the Ravens flock wanted, and people are excited to see him play next to Kyle Hamilton. But even in the weeks following that, as we learn more about him and as we see him more, it seems as though many people are getting more excited because they're also seeing that not only is this a guy who has a very high football IQ, but this is also a guy who seems to be a bit bold and seems to have that dog mentality. Main reason I say that is recently he sat down to do an interview with ESPN. Now that rookie minicamp is over, he's doing a small press run. He sat down with ESPN. I don't remember who he interviewed with. It doesn't matter, the name of the person. It really doesn't matter. But Malaki was kind of baited into this, so we shouldn't really take it that seriously. It's just kind of just an interesting answer that he gave. But he was asked, who does he look forward to picking off the most out of any of the quarterbacks in the NFL? And he said Josh Allen. And his reasoning for that is because several of his former teammates, guys who were University of Georgia alum, like James Cook and Tyler Bass, they're on the team. So he said that'll be fun. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm just wondering, like, does he already know? I'm sure he probably does. Like, if he's a smart guy, he probably already understands that there is like this low-key rivalry between the Ravens and the Bills, mainly because we all know Lamar Jackson got robbed of an MVP this year. It's not even debatable. We all know it. Only delusional Bills fans really want to convince themselves that Josh Allen deserved that award, but that's neither here nor there. As far as Malachi's statement, saying he can't wait to pick off Josh Allen, will he do it? Only time will tell. He'll have at least one opportunity to do it this season because we play the Bills at some point this year. The schedule comes out in about a month or two, so we'll figure out what day specifically we're going to be playing them. And is Malaki a guy who is necessarily known for getting a bunch of turnovers in college? I mean, not necessarily. He had 6 picks in his 3-year college career, as well as 17 pass breakups, but that doesn't mean he can't be a guy who creates a lot of turnovers once he gets into the league. I mean, like, if he's a good player, we assume these things are going to happen, and I'm going to remain optimistic that these things will happen. He's also a guy who, in his last year of college before entering the draft, only allowed 1 touchdown in his previous 469 snaps. That's always exciting to see as well. But my main question is, will Malaki make a difference in January? That's been my question since we drafted him. That's also my question for Mike Green, and that's also my question for any of the guys we picked up in the draft, even guys like Teddy Buchanan and guys like Aeneas Peebles. Because we all know that when we get to January, no matter how much we have put, when it comes to how much we have invested in defense, this has just simply never been a team. Well, in recent years, this has just never been a team that has actually had defensive players who have made a difference when it counted the most in January, which wouldn't necessarily be a big deal if we weren't a team that had a fan base that was so obsessed with the past. I've told Ravens fans many times that, the 2000s are gone. We can't have this mentality of only caring about defense and we need a well-balanced team, but people don't always see it that way. That's fine. We all disagree. I could disagree with you. You could disagree with me. But at the same time, if we're going to have that mentality of, man, forget it. We got dogs. We're getting dogs. We got best player available. I could get on board with that. But I'm also going to start to increase how much I expect out of these guys, because we can't keep pretending like when we get to January, any of these guys actually make an impact. At least so far. In this recent era of the Ravens, none of these guys have actually mattered. Now, I've said this several times, but sometimes you gotta make a visual to really drive home the point. And so I made a graphic here. It's an infographic. I'm putting it on the screen right now. I need you to look at the screen right now. This is a screen showing you, this is a chart showing you since 2018. Remember, Lamar got drafted in 2018. Eric DeCosta became the GM in 2019. So this is since 2018. From then to now, this whole era showing you NFL teams, mainly like top contenders at the very moment. Teams that either recently have become dominant and playoff contenders or Super Bowl contenders, or teams that have been perpetual Super Bowl contenders. And one thing you'll notice is this chart is showing you how many turnovers these teams' defenses have created since 2018. And when you look at this chart, and again, this is data that's very easy to verify. You could go look this up yourself if you don't believe me. But when you look at this chart, what you see is the Ravens defense is a complete non-factor in the playoffs. You look at these other teams, and the common theme that you're seeing is their defenses actually make a difference. They make plays. They actually are forcing turnovers. The Chiefs shouldn't be a surprise because they're in the Super Bowl so many times. But the Chiefs, since 2018, their defense has forced 23 turnovers in the playoffs. The 49ers also shouldn't be a surprise. Since 2018, the 49ers defense has created 22 turnovers in the playoffs. The Eagles, the team that literally just won the Super Bowl, the team that we should be low-key, they have created 18 turnovers in the playoffs. Their defense has created 18 turnovers in the playoffs. The Bills, their defense has created 14 turnovers in the playoffs since 2018. Even the Commanders, and I had to throw the Commanders in there because I wasn't going to put them in there, but this was so sad to me that I still had to throw them in the mix here. Not just because they're now basically playoff and Super Bowl contenders because of the fact that they finally found their franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels, but also more importantly because even the Commanders have outpaced us when it comes to turnovers in the playoffs since 2018. The Commanders since 2018 in the playoffs they have forced 6 turnovers. Mind you, since 2018, they've only made the playoffs twice. And they've already doubled what our defense has done when it comes to turnovers in the playoffs. And I understand that there's other ways a defense can be effective, but the fact of the matter is when you look at the other teams on this chart, these other teams are in conference championships. These other teams are in the Super Bowl. So I don't want to just hear you guys. I don't want to just hear people say, "Hey, we shut the Bills down in the second half." There's 2 halves to a game, and we clearly didn't shut them down enough because they still outscored us in the end. Same thing with the Chiefs the year before that. We seen Ravens fans say, "Oh my gosh, we held the Chiefs to 17 points," as if that was impressive. They scored less than 20 points like 8 games out of there was somewhere between 7 to 8 games that season where the Chiefs couldn't even reach 20 points. There was 2 games that season where they scored less than 10. You holding them to 17 is not that big of a deal. And again, I'm not saying our defense has played completely terrible, but like I've been saying, when you get to January, they just turn into a bunch of non-factors. And that wouldn't be a problem to me, that wouldn't be a problem if we were truly a well-balanced team. But when you look, we got a $100 million linebacker. We got a $100 million defensive tackle. We got a $100 million cornerback. We had a $70 million safety. We're about to pay Kyle Hamilton. He's probably going to be a $100 million safety. We have first, second, third, fourth, however many round pick edge rushers. We have so much on this defense. Not saying that they don't have anything on offense either, but it seems like when we get to January, most of the Ravens fans don't care that all of these players turn into non-factors. And to me, that's an issue. Because we just, so many times, we'll just simplify it as if it's just a matter of, well, Lamar had a turnover here, so it's all on him. And Lamar should be critiqued when he makes ridiculous mistakes. But there's a bigger picture at play, because when you watch these other teams, like I'm watching these other teams when they play in the playoffs, just like I'm sure many of you are. And when you watch these other teams, one common thing you'll see is that these other quarterbacks will make mistakes. But even though these other quarterbacks are making mistakes, doesn't really matter. The main reason it doesn't matter is because their defense can pick up the slack, because for the most part, they have a fairly well-balanced roster, at least when you compare it to us. The Eagles, you could use the Chiefs, obviously, right? Because right now we can't get past the Chiefs. Mahomes has had a bunch of bad playoff games, but nobody notices like that. People are only just now starting to notice that Mahomes has had some bad playoff games, some bad Super Bowl games. It's hard to notice when, even if he struggles a bit, his defense makes plays and steps up, and they get the ball back. So it's like, who cares? Same thing with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts throws a terrible pick in the first half, and the very next play, the Eagles defense forces a pick six. And mind you, when you look at this chart, the teams on this chart, if you asked Ravens fans if they think we have a better defense than these teams on this chart, Ravens fans will confidently say yes. The only team that I think Ravens fans would be a little bit nervous about when it comes to saying we have a better defense than them with confidence would maybe be Philadelphia. But outside of that, if you were to ask Ravens fans before they see this chart if we have a better defense than Washington, Buffalo, San Francisco, and Kansas City, most Ravens fans, without a shadow of a doubt, will say yes. Well, when it comes down to it, when we get to January, these guys don't matter. And if we're going to hold up this expectation of wanting them to bring back the 2000s and have this dominant defense, then at some point we got to demand that these guys actually make a difference when we get to January. And hopefully Malaki Starks, as well as anybody else we drafted, hopefully these guys can make a difference. But only time will tell. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you believe that Malaki is going to make a difference in January? And do you think Malaki will be able to get his opportunity to pick off Josh Allen?